Good afternoon, folks, and welcome back to the channel. We are down here at the Missouri River. This is the St. Joseph Nature Center. Really cool place. If you're in the area, check it out. But what I wanted to show you today is this new to me 2007 BMW F800ST, and this is replacing the Kawasaki ER6N that I had. Mainly because it's a lot better for a little bit more touring, a little bit longer distance riding. I tried a trip on the ER6N and it just wasn't all that enjoyable. Got a little uncomfortable, and by the time I was done, I was just ready for the ride to be over. And that's not what motorcycling should be, right? You should enjoy every second of it. And that's what happens when I'm on this. Like, this is so much more comfortable. So much easier to take long trips on this. It's, it does everything that the ER6N did and more. A little bit more powerful, a little bit more weight. So acceleration, pretty close to the same. I don't know which one would win in a drag race, but they're both quick. Neither of which are sluggish by any means. I don't wish for more engine on either bike, but this one does get better fuel economy by quite a wide margin. About 10 miles to the gallon better is what I'm getting with this. I'm somewhere around 52, 53 on this, where I was, 43-ish on the other. But a lot more high-priced components. Brembo brakes. This has ABS, things like that. This is a Rotax engine, and it is a 360-degree parallel twin rather than the 180-degree parallel twin. And the 180-degree parallel twin means that the pistons are actually alternating, so they kind of counterbalance themselves as far as weight. However, because they move in different directions, you kind of get a rocking couple effect, so there's plenty of vibration on either setup. 360-degree twin means they're both moving at the same time, and Rotax actually put a dummy connecting rod and third crank journal on this just to kind of counterbalance that. Does it work? Meh. It kinda, I guess. It's still vibey, but it's never uncomfortable. The vibration kind of has a frequency where you'll feel it in your bars a little bit, and then you'll feel it in your pegs a little bit, and then maybe you'll feel it on the tank where your knees are resting, which isn't a tank at all, by the way. That is actually an airbox cover, but I know everybody would refer to that area as a tank. The fuel tank is actually under the seat, so it keeps the weight a little bit low. So it's good fun to ride, and I think it's a pretty handsome unit. I do like the way it looks. People who really don't know a whole lot about motorcycles might guess this to be, a few years old. Not, 2007, where we're over a decade and a half from this thing being built. So I think the design has held up well. I think it's kind of a more modern looking design. And obviously the dash and the fairing and everything being fixed is a lot different than the naked Kawasaki, where, the gauge cluster and everything kind of turned with the handlebars and all that. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. 85 horsepower is what it's rated at. It is the least characterful way to make 85 horsepower, I think. It is a very agricultural sounding engine, but it is a good engine. This engine has a terrific reputation. It makes plenty of power. It seems to be bulletproof. They use this on many, many motorcycles. They use this on the F800GS, the F800S, the F800R, which is the roadster style, kind of more naked bike. But it's used in a lot of motorcycles, and used with a lot of success in a lot of motorcycles. It has a Two Brothers racing pipe on it. It was on there when I bought it. I don't know that it does a whole lot. It makes it louder, I guess, but it doesn't. It still doesn't sound very good. But that's not what this is about. This is more of an appliance, right? This isn't supposed to be a characterful motorcycle. But we'll talk about, motorcycles and character. I think I'm going to try to post a video on that. I have a Triumph Bonneville now, so we're going to kind of juxtapose those two motorcycles and kind of get where everybody's coming from when they talk about character. But if you listen to this engine, I don't know how well you can hear that. It just sounds like a tractor. It sounds very agricultural. Just da, 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 da. Sounds like a sewing machine, if you will. Very much like clockwork. But yeah, let's take it for a spin. This seat, it may look a little sporty. That seat is actually very, very comfortable. They made two seats on these. They made a low version and then they made a standard version. This is the standard version. The low version takes your seat height down a little bit, but it also sacrifices some of that cushion. And if you're a short rider, you may want to sacrifice that cushion just so you can flat-foot it at a stop and safely operate the motorcycle. But if you're a little bit taller, this seat is the way to go. It is super, super comfortable. Let's take it for a spin. Okay, you know me, I like a good bargain, and to me, I think this is a heck of a bargain. I typically am pretty diligent whenever I'm making a purchase, whether it's a car or motorcycle or a house or lawn tractor or whatever, anything that I'm buying that's not, you know, a couple of bucks at the store. I typically try to be diligent and research it and learn what I'm getting into. And a phrase that I kept hearing when I read about the F800ST, a word rather, not a phrase, is underrated. I must have read a half a dozen either, you know, magazine review articles or forums where people were talking about motorcycles that they ride or what have you, but I kept hearing the word underrated. And that always appeals to me because underrated usually means two things. Usually means it's pretty good, right? You're not going to call something overrated if it's terrible. But it also means it's cheap because availability outweighs demand. And anytime you've got more supply than demand, it's not expensive, right? No matter what you're talking about, anything that you buy, the price is going to be determined by supply and demand. Excuse me. So if something is extremely rare and in high demand, it's obviously going to be very expensive because rarely do you ever see one, and when you do see one for sale, people know that there will be folks fighting over it because it is in high demand. So this being a low demand, high supply vehicle, pretty cheap. So I bought this with, how many miles did this thing have on it? I think this thing had about 17,500 on it when I bought it. We're almost 19,500 now. But yeah, we were pretty close to 18,000. But and I paid $3,500 for it. So you're typically not going to get a lot of motorcycle for $3,500, but you do have plenty to choose from in that price range. Those Brembos scrub off some speed here. Those Brembos, my goodness, they work so well. Now getting to the seating position on this, I wish they had it a little bit more touring and a little bit less sport. I think it leans a little harder into that sport side of sport touring. And it's a shame too, because this is a wonderful, wonderful seat. And I would love to have the majority of my weight, well, you know, the majority of my weight is on the seat, but I mean, I would like to have a larger percentage of my weight on the seat rather than on my wrists. It is kind of a, and this has some bar risers on it too, so I don't know, maybe inch and a quarter or so bar risers. They were there when I bought it. I would actually prefer them to be even higher still, just so I could get a little bit of that weight off my wrists. But I have a throttle lock on this, so I do have the opportunity to kind of rest my wrists and occasionally just kind of let it, you know, just let it cruise and get the weight off of my wrists. Otherwise, my hands would go numb pretty quick due to all the weight that's on my wrists. Because you do lean forward, and it, you know, it definitely leans, like I said, into that sport side of the sport touring. It's kind of an aggressive. They wanted you to get a lot of weight over that front tire, And boy do they, because you're not, the natural position to sit on this bike is to lean forward a little bit, kind of with your tummy on this hump. I don't want to call it a fuel tank, but where the fuel tank would normally be, kind of have your tummy up there, and you actually have a lot of weight on your groin. So that's not a ton of fun. It's I would like to have more weight on my rear and less weight in the groin area, but it is what it is. They wanted you to lean forward and get into that kind of that aggressive fighter position to get weight over the front for aggressive cornering and stuff like that. And you know, it does really well at that. So I get it. I know why they did it. But I find myself kind of pushing back a little bit and trying to get more weight over the rear and really extending my arms out. That way I don't have so much weight on my wrists. And it's kind of unnatural on this bike to fight against that seating position where you're leaned forward and you're kind of tucked. So trying to sit more upright on this bike, I do it, but it's definitely not natural. The seat kind of forces you forward a little bit. The seat kind of wants you to be up, kind of like I said, sitting more on your groin and resting your tummy up there on the tank, the hump. So another cool thing about this bike, this is a belt drive instead of a chain drive. Why a belt drive, do you ask? Well, it is basically no maintenance. Not really low maintenance, more like no maintenance. Low maintenance would imply that there is some maintenance to do. There's nothing. The owner's manual does call for annual tension checks, but I think that's more just precautionary to make sure that nothing's loosened up. Because it's not going to stretch like a chain. You know, chains stretch. This belt really isn't going to stretch. The replacement interval is 24,000 miles, which means, you know, I'm approaching the time where I'm going to have to change it. And I don't necessarily want to let it go to 24,000. I'd probably rather get on top of it before then, because I know that time is as much a killer when you're talking about rubber belts. Time is as much a killer as is mileage use. So I'll probably want to get on top of that here real soon, maybe this year, but I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, belt drive's cool. Don't have to do shit to it. Once a month I was bringing the Kawasaki in once a month and oiling the chain, cleaning the chain real good, oiling it up, and then of course after you oil it up, I don't know what you guys use. I use gear oil. You try to clean the excess off as best you can, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You're going to end up with gear oil all over the freaking place. You're going to end up with it on your wheels. You're going to end up with it all over the back of your bike, and all over the back of your riding jacket, jeans. Yeah, it just sucks. It just sucks, but I would rather deal with a little bit of gear oil splashing around than have my chain end its life prematurely. You know, as long as you take care of them, clean them, and lubricate them, you get a lot of life out of the chain. So that's sacrifices we make, right? Sacrifices we make. Oh my God. That's kind of a droney, kind of a dull droney. Wow. Just not a pleasant sound. Not a pleasant sound at all. I love the fixed mirrors, and they're pretty wide. So that's another thing to consider. Like a lot of the naked bikes with the mirrors on the bars, they kind of have to be a little narrower, and of course they're going to be closer to you, which means that a lot of times when I look in a mirror on a naked bike, I'm looking at my shoulder. I don't know if you can see this, but each mirror has really good visibility behind me. And keep in mind, my eyes are a little higher than what you guys might be seeing, but the fixed mirrors, I absolutely love them. They're nice and wide. They're up ahead of me, far enough away from me to where I'm not just sitting there staring at my elbows. And, you know, on a naked bike, I'm constantly tucking my elbow just so I can see behind me. These quick mirror check, super easy. You don't have to move your elbows at all. You don't have to move your shoulder, nothing. But yeah, I bought this, and I did brake fluid front and rear, neither of which looked like it had ever been changed. That's a 2007 model, so that's a little alarming, but kind of looked like Coca-Cola coming out of there, pretty dark. So did that. The brakes were working fine, but you know, if you never change your brake fluid, your brakes working fine is not necessarily a phrase that you're going to be able to say for much longer, because brake fluid is hygroscopic and it's going to bring in moisture, and that moisture is eventually going to corrode parts, and then you're going to have pistons dragging and seizing and inside your calipers. So I didn't really do much to it. I did the fluids, I did engine oil and filter. You know, that's pretty much a given. Anytime I buy something used, the first thing I'm going to do is just get engine oil and filter changed. But goodness, it's windy. But yeah, super fun bike. If you are looking for a sport touring bike, something that might lean a little bit more to the sport side and a little bit more aggressive riding position, this might just be the bike for you. Give it a look. I'm going to give you a demonstration of the ABS on this thing. You can grab a hold of these brakes as hard as you want, and it will not lock up. It's pretty remarkable. ABS is a wonderful thing on a motorcycle, folks. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.